Hi there, Chris here with another fresh tip for you all. In this video, we're going to continue our look at blending. And so in this video here, we're going to take a look at feathering as it pertains to blending. It's a bit more like layering in the fact that no colors are actually mixing, but your eye is visually seeing the colors as they're laid on top of each other, combining and giving you a new color. In essence, blending. So what is feathering? Feathering is kind of like layering in the sense that we're going to apply a layer of paint onto the model. Now we can also do this as a shadow, where we can lay down some shadow points, or we can use it for highlighting, or both. Again, with this particular technique, it really isn't limited to, just being one or the other. You can use it in both. And of course, as we paint our models, hopefully we're not being limited by our particular techniques, and in fact are using whatever techniques we want to achieve our desired results. So this is just simply another means to an end. So I've applied just a rough layer of corn red here on the model surface, and really quickly here, I'm going to use some Rhinox hide to demonstrate laying down a bit of a shadow onto the model using feathering. So we're just going to lay a little bit down onto our palette. Now with this particular technique, we can go about it in two fashions. We could either use two brushes, lay the color down, and then feather it out. And of course the process of feathering I'll describe as I'm doing it. Or we can use two brushes. We can use one brush to lay it down and then use another cleaner brush to feather the color out. Either way, it doesn't really matter. If you're pretty fast and you're more comfortable with this technique, you'll be able to achieve this no problem. So really quickly here, I'm just going to use a two brush way, just because as I'm talking, color can dry out on a surface and can be kind of annoying. So really fast here, let's pretend we are going to create some shadow on this model. So I'm going to go and lay a little bit of this Rhinox hide onto the underside here and create a little bit of a shadow. So really quickly, we lay a little bit of the color with another clean brush that's kind of damp with water. We kind of feather the color outwards. And so we can do this as many times as necessary. This process is a bit like glazing in the regards that we are using the color in a very thinned out fashion. You see I kind of killed it a bit there. Let's lay a little bit more down, let's say in the muscles. Let's go within this line of the bicep or shoulder muscle. And so the feathering process, you just lay a little bit of the color down, you take your slightly damp brush, and then you can begin pushing the color around. Leaving it where it is heaviest, you can leave that there, and then you can feather out the color. And basically, like glazing, you're using thin layers of color to create your transition. Now you can kind of see it on the ribs, how we have a bit of a deeper color going on there. I did push it just a little bit too far with the feathering, so I can come back in. And because we're working in thinned out layers, we can build up the transition. So I can just lay a little bit more down. And again, with another clean brush, I can just simply feather that out. Like so. And of course, we can continue to build that up as far as we want. Again, because we're working in thinned out layers, we can lay many transitions down and build that color deeper and deeper if we want. Just for completeness sake, let's do it just a little bit here on the elbow as well. Of course, I'm only showing it as on this organic shape. This works just fine on harder edges and, if you're doing like tank surfaces. But as I've mentioned before, you want to, practice these kinds of techniques out on things. Definitely larger scale models is a fun way of, trying these things out. Just kind of getting a bit of practice. That way you're not trying it on a model that let's get rid of that leg spot. Trying it on a model that, you were really fond of, and then you kind of, want to try something a little bit more advanced, but your confidence in your skill level is kind of just, not there yet. So we've used feathering to achieve our shadows. So next we're going to use a little bit of Bugman's Glow here, and we are going to use it as a highlighting. And just to show you that you can use both the technique for both the shading of the model and the highlighting. It's pretty much like layering in that regards, but again, because this kind of falls within the category of blending, that basically the two colors, as light shines through them, they play, and your eye creates that blend, if that makes any sense to anybody. So we're going to slap a little bit onto our palette. Now this time I will just quickly do it. I'm just going to lay a bit of the color. I'm going to use a single brush here. You can see I have this brush with a longer bristle. It's got a wooden or brown handle. I'm going to use the same brush. Basically, I'll be really fast. I'm going to use it, the paint. I'm going to apply it, rinse my brush off really fast, and then feather the color out. Also too, when I'm thinning the color down, now some of you might be asking, well, what about thinning the colors? You can use mediums to thin the color down just a bit. You can use a bit of water to thin the color down just a bit. When I talk about thinning the color down with just the dampness of my brush, I just quickly rinsed my brush, but you can see the bristles are just a little bit swollen with moisture, and that's really as much water as I will use to thin the color down, especially with just this little amount of paint on my palette. And that's more than enough to thin this color down to where I like it for using this kind of blending technique. And so really fast here, I'm going to just quickly lay a little bit down right here quickly with the one brush, and then just begin feathering the color out. Now, like I said, this surface texture here is quite bumpy, so it's going to take a moment here to kind of blend the color out. In fact, with that, I might even, if I actually was really thinking about it and wanting to do something interesting, I probably should have switched to a slightly larger brush, something with a bit more surface that could have got that area. Whereas if I'm working on smaller areas, let's say like on the tricep area here, lay a little bit right there and then blend that out. Of course, this requires you to move quite quickly and be very deliberate. You kind of have to have your own little process already in mind as far as how you like to highlight and, you know, create your effects. And let's hit that bicep as well. The bicep is also has quite a bit of texture on it as well, but that is not a huge issue. Again, I'll probably, you know what, I will switch to a larger brush here when I do this, but let's bring this highlight across like that. There is quite a bit of texture on this surface, but that is not a huge issue. And I've switched brushes here. I've grabbed a larger brush. Yeah, because the surface, it is making it kind of fun to bring the color around. Yeah, it's kind of pretty much killed it. And of course, once you've gotten some of the color around to where you want and you have it in this thinned out state, it is pretty much like glazing. You can take that thinned out color and apply it and do a surface with it and just go for something kind of interesting. For example, let's just say we were blending this top muscle here, and with the thinned out color we can go something like that and then apply it right there. And basically what we're doing at this point is we're glazing, but that is something else we can talk about in another video when we talk about glazing. But again, with the feathering, now that is feathering. That is a rough demonstration. If I was really kind of nitpicking and, you know, going through, I would build up a few more layers. I probably would work with the color just a little bit thinner. I might add a medium, who knows, but otherwise, in a nutshell, that is feathering. That's a form of blending. It's a bit closer to like glazing. It's one of those kind of techniques where it borrows from one and half of the other kind of thing. But that is it. So don't be afraid to give this a try. Definitely try it out on a practice model if you're brand new to the technique, if you're not that familiar with it. Don't be afraid to give these techniques a try. Hopefully this has been educational. And so a huge thank you to all my patrons for making these videos possible. If you're considering patron support, click the link down below or head over to wavethebrush.com. And a huge thank you. And for everybody else out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and don't be afraid to ask your questions as well, because as we continue on through this series, that is really what this is all about. It's about helping you guys and making you guys better painters and enjoying the hobby just a little bit more. So don't forget to take care of those brushes, and I'll see you guys in the next video.